Great. Now you said you had some superstar intro that you were going to do, right?
Welcome, gentlemen, to our level 10 agenda training for the PMs. Oz, you might have to mute your computer because I can hear myself echo. I think that's much better. All right, cool. Excellent. Okay, so today we're going to be going through our agenda for the production department. As you guys know, we meet once a week with me, DOP, to go over projects that we're currently running, upcoming projects, any challenges or issues that I can help with, and then also to talk about our rocks, which are our goals for the quarter, right? So just starting all the way from the top, Ozzy, this is going to be yours going forward. This is the agenda that we will use for our meetings on Thursday. At the very top, it has the facilitator. That'll be you, because you'll be the one leading the meeting, bringing the issues, and then we'll rub minds and figure it out together, right? You'll also be scribe, meaning you're the one making edits to your sheet, saving them weekly, and things like that. So you own the sheet. And then I put in here the date, Thursday is the time, 2 o'clock. The mission for our level 10s, simple and effective teamwork. We want to make sure that we're all in the know about what's going on and that we're all on the same page and can figure anything else out that's looming. Rules of engagement. 1, seek to understand / knowledge. 2, address with positive intent. 3, challenge with solutions with deadlines. And 4, confirm we are all on the same page. Okay. A good way to start the meeting is with high fives. It's good to take stock of our wins. What have we accomplished this week so that we know how well we're doing. And then after that, we move on to our scorecards, so KPIs and things like that. Okay. All right. The KPIs for the PMs, we are going to be revising at some point, but right now it measures customer satisfaction, and then measures on time. We will add another layer for budget so that we're tracking all 3 of those. And you'll see it coming up in the next couple months. But the plan is for the KPIs to be here so that you can see it, put your scores in, and see how well we're doing each week as they change. Next up is rocks. So the rocks are typically like the goals that we want to accomplish for that quarter. So Q1, we would have our rocks in here for whatever we wanted to accomplish for Q1. I usually like one of those goals to be a personal goal because we don't only want to grow professionally, we also want to develop personally as well. Okay. So if a personal goal is a fitness goal, or, you know, I need help being more assertive, or I need to read more books this year, or whatever it is, that can go in there, we'll work through it together. So that's for the rocks. Usually how we determine the rocks that we think are important for the quarter is they will come out of our reviews, which will start happening quarterly also. So our 90-day reviews, we'll go through those, and then from there, we'll pick up the things we want to work on or the things that might be good rocks, and they'll go here. We will prioritize them in this column right here. So when the rocks are listed down here, we will list them in order of priority, 1 being the higher priority, and then go down the list so that we know how to tackle them as we go. Okay.
Okay.
Next up is the headlines. So what I put in the things that I would like us to discuss under the headlines. First thing will be hot items. I know that we usually do this, we go over these in the production meeting, but here would be an opportunity to really deep dive into it. The production meeting is kind of like a summary update where everyone goes around the table and says, hey, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. We get it, but here's an opportunity for us to actually talk about it in detail. Like, hey, here's the major item I'm dealing with. What do we need to do to resolve? So hot items will go there. The other things we will talk about would be
strategy session for that hot item. Like what's needed, who do we need to get involved? How do we want to approach them? if the hot items are enough, it might consume the whole agenda. Obviously, if they're hot items, then that would all that you'd need to focus on, assuming that you can breeze through the rest to make sure nothing else needs to be a priority. But hot items would obviously run, it runs the production department. You go from one hot item to the next.
Yeah, those are our blockers, right? The thing, our roadblocks, I should say. So obviously priority for us to talk about them and find a path so that we don't get stuck. So it's hot items. Again, same thing. We would put due dates on them, who's responsible for leading the charge, and then prioritize in this column.
Do you have any
Same.
examples? Do you have any examples of what you can think of would be a hot item of what you're working on?
Yes.
What's a good example?
Propane tank. Selaznick.
Propane tank at Selaznick. I go to say, I got an email over here for like truss or wall removal over at Rualis. Things that are like, we need to make decisions on, we need a strategy. And a lot of the items that end up getting put on this hot items are client related things, like how are we closing this, how we approach it. Oh boy, we found this out. How are we gonna approach them?
Correct.
Dominion at Vicento.
At one point it was Trask trust quote, right?
Mhm.
That's obviously a hot item that needed to take place, and it consumed us for a little while.
Yeah, these are all good examples to bring to the meeting that we can talk through and find a path.
I wouldn't say wall framing at Rualis is that hot, maybe. Well,
It's warm.
it's warm.
It's a little warm. Okay.
So what we try to do is, in production, can things get queued up and you talk about it once a week? No, that's not how the world works. It's like you need answers, you need it now. But
Mhm.
these would be like the reoccurring things that haven't been solved throughout the week. So you're documenting them. So then we know that we have a path to get these items solved so we can keep running. Because if it's a hot item and it hits this agenda for 3 weeks in a row, I mean, that's going to be something super serious. And it's probably going to be like a utility related item that we're like, what do? We need to strategize.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's also a place to track these things to make sure that they're getting done, they're being attended to, and they're getting completed. You'll see at the bottom of the sheet, Oz is a tab that says completed items. What we do is when an item is complete, we will remove it from the sheet and move it to the completed. Over time, it's great to just go over there and take a look. And it's awesome to see how many tasks that we've completed over the quarter, over the year, whatever it is. You just see them all stacked in there. And it's kind of a motivating thing to help us know that, hey, we're actually getting stuff accomplished. So that's how this works. Okay. The other things that we will touch on in our meeting, we may not spend too much time on it if there's no major conversation, but we definitely want to touch on projects that are currently in production. So projects that you're running. So in our meeting, Oz, it would be Trask, Crescento, Ruelas. For Jack, Selaznick. For Jack, it'd be hers.
Bannon.
Bannon and Harvey.
Yeah, for those items, when you talk about them, if it's no news, just move on. Sometimes the discussions might be about a trade or a supplier. It might be about the client, like if they've scored us at like a 3.5 or something like that, what do we need to strategize to get them on board? That might need to be like a touch from the designer, or maybe the designer or a salesperson or someone else comes and attends that next weekly meeting. That's your chance to strategize how to get them back on track, as well as if you're waiting on information from any of the in-house people, like how's our field team doing, PDs, designers, sales, everybody related to that job.
Absolutely, agree. Strategy session. Same goes for upcoming projects. This will be an opportunity to get it on your radar to let you know, hey, this is the next project that's coming up. What do you need? And so, you know, this is also on the PD's level 10. So they also have the upcoming projects on there. So we're prepping them to say, hey, it's within a month of starting. We need you to start setting up a PP field trip, pre-con, and anything else that they need to do. So they'll be working on the back end, and then we'll also be working here on the front end to be like, what do we need to do on our end to prep for it? So
that's not as relevant right now, because I think we only have one project start over the course of the next 5 to 6 weeks, besides Slavic that obviously just started, right? Or is in the process of starting. But in other snapshots in time, we have like 6 job starts in 6 weeks. So that line item would be a little bit more for.
Yeah, these fluctuate as you know, with volume, whatever's going on. So some weeks we may spend more time on the hot items or projects in production. Other weeks it's upcoming, just depends on what's going on. And then up next is job costs. So it's really important that we hit job costs at our weekly meetings. In the past, we've been spending the majority of the meeting talking about the job costs because we were actually job costing in that meeting. We're moving away from doing that, Oz. What we're looking to do now is to have the PMs have their job costs for the week done prior to the weekly meeting. So that when we're at the weekly meeting, what we're doing is reviewing the job costs versus doing it in there, if that makes sense. So for Oz, if your weekly meeting is on Thursdays, I would like for your job costs to have been done and up to date prior to Thursday, so that when we get in that meeting, we can review it together, talk about where there's slippage happening or if there's any issues that I can help with.
Yeah, there should be hot items that potentially come out of reviewing the job.
100%. Next column is the to-dos. To-dos is basically the tasks that you have for the next week or two. They go in this column here so that we can put due dates on them, check them off as they get completed, and just have a running list of things that we need to get completed, right? When we're going through the headlines and the goals, sometimes we'll get tasks from those as we're talking through them and strategizing that we need to get done. Those will go in the to-do list. So if the list is to say, hey, find out from Better Living how quickly we can get those trusses on site, they can get it there on Monday. That becomes a task for you, us to give them a call. Just basically anything that needs to be done in the next week or two goes here so that we can track them and make sure that they're getting completed. Questions about that?
No.
So a lot of times, like the job cost line item would remain there under headlines to talk about. And there might be one line item that says, hey, go check out, I don't know, the concrete information, how it's being coded over at Bannon or something like that. And that would go under the to-do to get done, but the job cost line item would still remain under the headline.
Yeah, so for instance, today, Oz, we had to meet with Ramon to review concrete scope for Selaznik to make sure that he had everything in his scope and he wouldn't be coming back later to ask for more money, right? So that will go in here with the due date.
Probably won't come back to ask for more.
But he actually came late, so he has to come back again.
So your due date goes there. So this is just to keep track of the things we need to do, make sure they're getting done. The due date is not set in stone. Ideally, we want to have our tasks completed by the due dates, but there are times when there are circumstances beyond our control that cause things to have to move back. So when that happens, we talk about it, we set a new due date that we want to meet. So we're just making sure we're talking, basically communicating and making sure that we're tracking those items is what this is for.
So it says who next to it. So if it's Oz's weekly meeting, Oz is just gonna be you and Salima. So the only two people that can get put in that category are you and Salima, but you know, the actual data, you might need to go back to design or something to get. So if you had to go back to Nina, you would put that kind of in the body of the topic of what needed to be done. And then the department would be designed to get that, but there's only two champions of that task. Either you or Salima, because you're the only two at that meeting.
So who is the person that is responsible for championing that task to make sure it gets done? If you're tracking down the information from other people, your name will go there. And then the department that you need the answers from will go there. Usually what I like to do is I like to put notes on the side in a different color font, like huddle with Nina to find out, or huddle with Claudio, or scope clarification, whatever it is. And then this lets me know what my next step is when I'm looking at the sheet and what my task is that I need to do.
So taking a step back, like Oz and Jack, like this, it seems like a robust agenda. Like why can't we get through something quicker? But like the bigger picture is, so you would work with Salima on these level 10 agenda styles, but then the design department's using the level 10 styles. Salima and I do ours together as Salima's level 10. Mark and I have our own level 10. And what that does is, if that to do is like go check with Claudio on something, then obviously that's going to be a one-off and that would just be done. But if it was like, hey, we need to revise the design system, which would go to like say Nina or sales and somehow goes to Andrew, then it's not just going to hit like a task that I do. It would then go hit Nina's level 10 so that we can manage that process being completed. And that's this is our mechanism to make sure that when it gets branched to other departments, that the task that this department is requesting is still completed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, sometimes it goes into the abyss and like, was it done? Did it get done? I'm not sure, but this is our means to ensure it can be completed.
Correct. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're the one doing a task. It's just like you're the one facilitating.
It's a memory jar. We're all getting a little older. I'll speak for myself. Can't remember everything.
Sometimes we willingly forget when we don't like the task. Not too.
I guess there's that too.
That was me. I do that.
Sometimes I call Salima about some of those things.
All right, IDS. So IDS is short for identify, discuss, solve. This is where we're dumping everything that we need to talk through. Just things that we may not have necessarily a solution for, or you have some solutions for, and you just need to talk through it with me to figure out what's the best path that we want to go. Also strategizing, right? These all go here. The other things that could go in here as well would be future goals that we may want to do in the upcoming quarters, like Q2, Q3, Q4. They all get dumped in here. We discuss it all, sort things out by priority, and decide like what our next goals are going to be for the next quarter. And then as we get these things resolved, they can come off the IDS. But the IDS is usually the most lengthy part of the sheet because all the ideas are going in there that we need to talk through. Primarily the PMs are the ones that are putting information on this sheet because you're the facilitator of the meeting, so you're bringing the challenges to me. But I also will add items in here, and items that I add, typically I would put in the IDS so that we can discuss and talk through them. Make sense?
Yep.
That's where usually has the most time of the meeting reserved for, but again, it depends on the week and what's going on. But anything that just needs to be discussed, strategized, you have questions, thoughts, recommendations, all of that, anything and all of it can all go in here in the IDS.
You know, Salima, I'm trying to foresee where you're gonna spend time on these meetings, and I think you're gonna spend more time on IDS with the PDs and new things and new tasks coming up. I think there'll be a large percent of the time under headlines for Oz and Jack, just because like the main focus is like, these are the hurdles I'm currently working through to try to keep these jobs going.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to keep the standard timelines next to it, or once you have a few meetings, try to figure out, where you are spending the most time and adjust the time accordingly.
Yeah, I think it'll adjust as we have a few meetings. We'll figure out where we're spending the most time, and then these will adjust. So our meetings are typically an hour long. I would like to keep it to an hour. If we determine that we need more time, we can figure that out. But for now, it's 60 minutes long for the entire meeting. The goal is to start on time and finish on time. That's why it's a level 10 meeting, to be as effective as possible. So I would say if your meeting Oz is at 2 o'clock, please hop on at like a few minutes before 2, so that at 2 we're starting right on the money and we can end on time. We also want to help. The reason why each of these sections have times associated with them, and like we said, we'll adjust, is to make sure that we're keeping ourselves to the time that's allotted for each of those, so that we don't run over, not discuss things that we need to.
Then we should, put the time for the last part, like 30 minutes, not 60.
Yeah, it's not 60. This agenda was built for a 90-minute meeting, but ours is an hour long, so this will not be 60. We would adjust it as we go after we've had a few meetings to see how much time we actually need in there.
So let's put it 30 for now. So in the end, the good example is this meeting is to stick to this standard process. It's to solve the things that need to be solved, especially in the headlines.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the IDS is used to just keep, what's all the tasks that we're working on? Don't let any task that you're working on not be on this sheet, because then you can clearly be able to prioritize what you're working on. So like Jack, when you're hunting down certain trades or vetting trades or certain estimates, like put that all on your IDS, just so then everybody's kind of aware of like what you're working on, so you can prioritize your stuff. And then just like what Salima said, is this isn't the place to process the job costs. This is when you review the job costs.
Mhm.
So if you get in a routine where you feel like you're doing the task instead of reviewing the task, the point of these agendas is to stick to an hour so they're predictable, and then whatever you're actually doing probably needs to be booked as a separate huddle.
Mhm.
For example, Salima and I, we have our level 10, it take an hour, and we were kind of noticing that the whole thing was taking like an hour and a half, almost an hour and 45 minutes. And we were realizing that we were working on so many processes. So we made the decision, do we want to change this meeting to an hour and a half? Or do we want to have a separate meeting on a separate day to go over those particular items? Like the job cost for Oz example. So Salima and I decided to have a separate meeting on Tuesdays to talk about processes. And now that we've done that, then our level 10 meetings stay to an hour every time and we cruise through it.
Yeah, it's a great example. So if we need more time, we can either split up the meeting or decide if we want to make the level 10s longer, but that's a conversation that we can have as we start these. I have a question for Jack and Oz, because I think that's what they're thinking. How is this meeting different from the production meeting? Why is it important to have this weekly meeting and still be at the production meeting?
The question was just popping in every time you were describing all this. And I was like, maybe it's just a replica of the same meeting we're gonna have every Thursday morning. And then, by end of day, another meeting like that. But yeah, I mean,
I
what
think
do you
this is
think?
more personally focused.
This one's so think about this one as a deep dive. It's on the production meeting. we don't get a chance to really talk about the issue. You mention it so that we're aware that there's a hot item going on and we can make a note of it in my production report. But this is an opportunity to actually talk through it, get a resolution. So for instance, on the production meeting, you mentioned, hey, cabinets are delayed at Ruelas, or Recinto, I'm sorry. We need a side huddle to have a conversation on, okay, what's our game plan to make sure that we get that resolved. The production meeting is not where that should be happening because it just makes it lengthy and nothing really gets resolved there. So this is the opportunity to one-on-one strategize. And every now and then you'll be like, hey, I need 30 minutes of your time. I need 20 minutes of your time. This is the time to be like, everything that's on your plate, let's talk about it all.
But then you know what? Whosoever is gonna be responsible to make that happen, I mean, are they gonna be part of this meeting or not?
No, this is a strategy meeting. They're not going to be in here. So this is a meeting to talk through who do we need to do what? Okay, the PD needs to go on down, blah, 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 blah. Design needs to do X, Y, and Z. Who's the facilitator? So who's the person making sure that that's getting done? Who's handling what task? That's what this meeting is.
But then who's gonna do the follow-ups?
Follow us meaning what? Give me an example, please.
Like, for instance, we have this meeting and we have put like all these hot items or the topics or the stuff, and then we put like who, and then the resolvers or the solvers or whosoever, then who's gonna follow up on those things if they were being resolved or not till the next meeting?
Correct. It would be like you kind of have, so everything would get put under the IDS section of like, okay, so this needs to be done, this needs to be done, and you sort through, okay, so it's best that Salima goes and talks to Elizabeth about this one item of whatever it is, right? So that line item then would be put under the to-dos because it has to be done within the next week or two. And then it would stay on this agenda until the following week when Salima said, I talked to Elizabeth, it got done, now it's completed, and it gets moved to the completed items section.
So the to-dos, Oz, it tracks who is the person that's doing the follow-up right here. It says who. So if it says your name in it, then you're doing the follow-up. If it's my name, I'm doing the follow-up. So when we have our next weekly meeting, we're updating on those to-dos. Did they get completed? Is there a second follow-up that needs to happen? That's what this is for. As they get completed, they get removed from this list and put in the completed section. So they're not in here anymore. And then we keep adding to it as we go.
So part of the things that should take place is Salima's a little all over the place in terms of her schedule of where she is and where she's pulled. And she needs to be able to spend at least 1 hour of dedicated time for each of you that you have her undivided attention of okay, what problems, what issues you have, and where can I help? And then she also has access to all the resources that would be needed. So then as you say, like, here's my hurdle for this, here's my hurdle for this, you can strategize what the solution would be. And then she could help get you access to all the resources you need to hit the deadline that you think that needs to be hit.
But then in that case, can it be possible if we can make this particular personalized strategy meeting part of our production meeting, maybe in between, afterwards, or before that, where we can, have this conversation or this discussion with Salima, and then while we have the PDs with us in our production meeting, they can also take a look at this thing or this sheet, and then we can, we can try to, communicate and pass on all that information then and there after or in between that production meeting. And I mean, rather than having another separate meeting on the same day, like later.
So I hear what you're saying. I think there's going to be some pros and cons of when and how you do it. I think that with getting a reoccurring meeting that's more structured, that's kind of like how we do weekly meetings with clients. Like if we keep a reoccurring structured meeting, we have less outside discussions, outside that meeting. So when we have this reoccurring structured meetings, I believe that'll make the production meeting go faster. Now, is it going to turn an hour-long meeting into a half-hour-long meeting? Probably not, but it will probably shave some time off.
Correct.
So I think that there's a pro to having this meeting prior to the production meeting, because you're walking into the production meeting and you've already listed out your to-do, so you can walk in and be like, this is the status of Rurales. Elizabeth, I need you to do this, and I need you to do this. And there's also a pro to having a production meeting, talking about it, hearing what other people's priorities are, and then having this meeting. So to be honest, you guys can strategize however you want to strategize.
So Salima, in that case, probably we can have this meeting every Wednesday, like at the end of Wednesday, before the production meeting on Thursday.
We can schedule it for whenever you want to have it. Just find a spot on my calendar.
Because because I think that makes sense, as Andrew is saying, that it's better to have this meeting before our production meeting so that the PDs would know that we had that extract from this particular personalized meeting with the PMs, and then they're gonna act accordingly. And then we can pass on that information, like maybe the summary, the glimpses of this meeting in that meeting, production meeting.
So, I mean, I would agree with you, Oz, in a sense, like, if the more prepared you come to the major meetings, the faster it's going to be, because you're just sitting there and saying, this is what I need and this is what I want. So like,
Right.
before you're prepared for that client, weekly meeting, and you already know, here's the hurdles and this is what we're doing and this is where I need to check and this is the decision I need from you, then that meeting only takes 20 minutes. But if you don't kind of have that list and you're pulling the list up and talking about it, it's an hour-long meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree, if that's the style that you want to create, just figure out a time that works for both of you and go with it. And of
Yeah.
course, that's your strategy.
Yeah,
And of
yeah.
course, Jack might have a different strategy and he can
Correct.
do whatever he wants.
Hey, Salima, I'll take Azib's 2:00 Thursday appointment time.
Awesome. There you go. Look at that. Works out great. So cool. Good, all good points, Oz. All good
Yeah,
points.
so I'll take then 2:00 Wednesday.
How you know I'm free? We'll figure that out.
One extra little point of that production meeting, because now the production meeting will change a little bit, because I think it'll be quicker, it'll be less detailed, and you're just like, we're going into drywall phase, we're gonna get this check, clients of 4, no hurdles. This job's a little different. Here's the hurdle that we have. I need this from this person, this from this person. So you'd be more prepared for that. And I think what you'll find is once we get the terminology, the PDs are used to it, especially Ariel, because I've been working with her on the level 10 agenda for a while. But it would be like, if you need them to do a single task that needs to be done within the next like 2 days, well, they just need to take notes on it. Anything that's like a, hey, do this, and it's like over the course of the month, then the actual how you phrase it is, and then Ariel, I need you to add this to your IDS.
Add this to your level 10.
Add this to your IDS.
Mhm.
And then they would be adding it to their level 10s that they have with Salima. That way Salima can track it to make sure it gets done. Well, they prioritize it and then track it to make sure it gets done.
Yeah. So
So are we gonna have this meeting like at the same time, me and Jack, or separately?
no, separately. So this is one-on-one uninterrupted time with me
Okay.
for the week. Like, you have my undivided attention. What do we need to go over in detail?
Gotcha.
Salima's gonna shut off her email.
Yes, my email will be shut off.
When people watch this training in the future, they're gonna be like, he said it again, didn't he?
This was this was just a practice run. Yes, my email will be shut off.
Again? Oh, God.
Awesome. Any questions so far before we move to the last segment, which is the conclusion? Any things I can clarify for you?
No, not for me.
Tuesday 2 p.m. Wednesday 2 p.m.
Oz, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds great.
Do the jobs cost reports come out by that time that he can do them?
So the job cost reports come out every Wednesday mornings.
Okay.
So
Like around noonish time. Yeah.
Yeah, so Oz, just put it in your calendar for
mhm,
Wednesday at noon to do the job costs, and then you'd be
Yep.
good to go for the 2 o'clock call. Or 2.
Yep.
I guess you guys would be having calls at first, right?
awesome. last but not least is the conclusion. So for the conclusion, quick recap, and then we're required to rate the meeting to see how efficient or how effective the meeting was. The rating will be from 1 to 10. So I'll ask you every week, just like we do the clients, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this meeting? The goal is to not have a rating less than an 8 because that's not considered an effective meeting. And if we do, then we want to talk about how we can get that meeting to an 8 or higher is the goal. Okay. That being said,
Who's gonna rate that?
the facilitator, which would be you,
Okay.
the PM.
Both of you grade, both of you rate it.
So how would you,
Was this effective for your time?
Okay.
and that helps us customize it for you because we still want to keep it mostly the same, but we can still customize here and there what's needed as needed.
So this would be your opportunity, Oz, at the end of each week, because right now, if you're feeling like I'm not seeing the value added, the difference between this meeting and the production meeting,
Mhm.
that's where you could talk about with Salima, it's okay, so what needs to change to make this be a more valuable use of time? Like not talk as much about this, talk more about this, how I can get answers, figure out a way to make 45 minutes instead of 60 minutes. I mean, that's basically what the discussions are.
Yeah, knowing Oz and the communications we've had in the past, I know what he's needing desperately is some kind of collaboration with the team. And I think this meeting will help weed out exactly what it is that we need from them so that when we go to the production meeting, we can just get it, or at least know that someone's working on it.
If that's what Oz is looking for, can you add that to his IDS?
Sure can.
How to get more collaboration with the PDs? That would be a great example of a line item under IDS. Then that might not be the actual task. The task is going to be create another huddle, do something, figure out a system. Is it a piece of technology? Do we use Slack? Whatever it is, that would probably be the line item of task that's used. And then, you'd set the priority, which sets the date, which sets the everything. I'm glad that Oz is caring that I have a profile picture.
We all care. Okay, great. Good talk. Any other questions, Oz, Jack?
No, I'm good.
All right, perfect. Let's rate the meeting then.
It was a good meeting for Oz. It's a 2 for me only because I've already done this with Mark. It's no reflection on anyone. It's just that I just wanted to hear how you wanted it, but it's no different. So
Awesome.
I'm good.
Well, thank you for being on it. I appreciate that. So, Oz?
So I would rate it 5 because I don't know the other half.
Tough crowd. Okay.
I was gonna rate it a 5, but because Jack has his camera turned off and I don't have to see him, I'm gonna rate it an 8.
Well, that's good, honestly, because I look like hell today. I didn't get much sleep.
I would give it 10 because, but I don't know how productive it will be. So maybe next time I'll just give it 10 out of 10. I mean,
Okay.
for now, because I don't know how this thing is going to help us reducing our production meeting time and then resolving whatever we have on the plate.
Solve issues is the main intent.
Yeah.
That is the goal. So, Oz,
The bottom line
About the
bottom
future,
line that I get from these meetings is that I can talk about issues I can't talk about in front of other people. And it's up to the person in charge to handle my grievances or my issues without me exploding.
yeah.
Oh,
So
without exploded.
without exploding.
Okay.
That would be like maybe if someone's in the room, but like for instance, like Oz, you're like, and who sold Rualis? Salima talked me off a ledge, right? And you don't want to say that in front of the team.
yeah, this would be the one.
But down under the future rocks, 'cause I don't think we talked about the future rocks section, is when it, it seems like large, like tasks all of a sudden aren't like a single item. It's this like more robust issue.
Cumbersome, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, we need to get to it, but now is not the right time. And we put that under the future rocks, and that way we always have a memory jogger of it. And then when we get to coming up with our future, with our next quarter rocks, we can evaluate what's on the list of other things we want to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a lot, Oz, when you're first looking at it, it seems like a lot to go over, but as you get into the routine and you see things start to cycle through the sheet, it's not that cumbersome at all. And it really helps.
Yeah, the
Truly,
bulk
truly.
of the time goes into the hot items. I mean, whatever you're working on is the bulk of the conversation.
I think it's really phenomenal that we are, I think, almost the entire company's on level 10s. So that's pretty cool.
Oz is the last one. And maybe that'll make him rate it higher, is because, you know, last is best, I guess.
He wants a meeting with the PDs, not with me. He doesn't want beef with me. All right, guys.
I think that's what the production meeting can turn into, is you strategize what's happening at this level 10 meeting, and you each can walk into the production meeting and say, so this is what I need. Boom, 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 boom.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, awesome. It was a great meeting for me. Thank you.
Are you ready?
Okay, I'm driving to the office now, so I will call back in 15 minutes.
Okay, we're wrapping up anyway, so you wouldn't have to. Thank you, Jack. Okay.
Well, no, don't we have something at 12?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. You're right.
Okay, I'll talk to you in 15 then.
All right, talk to you then.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.